couple said last night the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and Mrs. Raglan were involved in this near catastrophic chess at the hands of a ring
and her leaving the royal family and all the tea they spilled on the royal family with her mocking the queen with her deep bow or curtsy.
Thanks to their insatiable desire to finally tell their story. Like to Oprah and on Spotify.
What happens when one question from Megyn Kelly completely catches Meghan Markle off guard? It all began when Kelly looked directly into the camera and asked what millions were quietly thinking. Questions about Meghan's actual age. It wasn't just a simple inquiry. It sparked a massive online discussion because once that question went public, the internet began analyzing every detail. And suddenly Meghan's carefully constructed timeline faced intense scrutiny. Her story has always seemed fluid.
Megyn Kelly didn't mince words. She looked straight at the camera and said what so many had only whispered. Is Meghan Markle
shifting and changing like it's constantly being updated with more revisions than you'd expect? But here's what's fascinating about building a public image. When inconsistencies appear, they tend to multiply quickly. And Meghan Markle may not have been prepared for the level of investigation that followed. But here's what gets really fascinating. This might just be the beginning. If you want to see how deep this mystery actually goes and discover what other inconsistencies might be hiding in plain sight, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe with notifications on, because what we're about to uncover next will completely change how you see this entire situation.
But today felt like the perfect day to address a theory that many people out there have been speculating on, that Meghan...
Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. But Meghan never anticipated this level of examination, and that's because she had spent years building what she believed was a solid public foundation. She had carefully positioned herself as a modern figure who brought fresh perspectives to traditional institutions. Someone who could bridge different worlds and connect with people across various backgrounds. Everything in her approach was supposed to be built on established information, official documentation, verified timelines, and details that should have been straightforward to confirm.
Now today, Meghan Markle, the Montecito Mona, has given yet another masterclass in victimization disguised as a podcast.
She had developed a public narrative that appeared polished and consistent, though it contained more adjustments and updates than most people might expect from someone in the public eye. Her approach was rooted in a belief that she could effectively manage her public story through strategic communication and careful timing. Meghan had become comfortable with the idea that her official version of events would be accepted without extensive cross-referencing. She had grown accustomed to presenting information on her own terms and ensuring that favorable aspects of her background received primary attention.
The many lies of Meghan Markle. That is the subject of today's Talking Points. Meghan Markle lied.
After all, she had successfully navigated various career transitions and public roles throughout her life. From acting to humanitarian work, from Hollywood to royal circles, she had consistently managed to present herself positively. In her perspective, she had demonstrated an ability to communicate her story effectively and maintain public support through various situations. However, what Meghan may not have fully appreciated was that certain positions come with unprecedented levels of public examination that go beyond typical celebrity attention. Every detail becomes subject to verification.
No, Megyn, no! Don't do it! If you want things, look at me, Megyn Kelly, if you want things to stay the same.
By multiple sources. Every timeline gets compared against available records, and every discrepancy becomes amplified through public discussion. The reality is that Meghan had become confident in her ability to present information in a coordinated way, managing both the timing and the context of information about her past. But she may have underestimated how thoroughly modern audiences examine public figures, especially those who join institutions with centuries of established protocols.
Uncovering the truth, Meghan Markle's ageless allure. In the ever-evolving world of royal dynamics,
what she considered effective narrative management was actually creating a framework that would face detailed examination when people began looking more closely. And she may not have realized that one overlooked detail from her past was about to trigger comprehensive analysis of her timeline and generate questions she never expected to address. What she didn't realize was that one overlooked photo would trigger extensive analysis, and ironically, it was probably something she never considered noteworthy. The Northwestern University Salsa Club picture seemed like the
Meghan Markle will marry into Britain's royal family on May 19th when she ties the knot with Prince.
Most harmless piece of her college history. Just a cheerful snapshot of students enjoying dance lessons together. In Meghan's perspective, this was probably just another positive memory that would enhance her public image. She likely viewed it as excellent evidence of her well-rounded education and diverse interests. Here was proof that she embraced culture and connected with fellow students through shared activities. Megyn probably thought this photo would demonstrate her authenticity, showing her as a typical college student participating in campus life.
If you see a tweet like this, please report it to head of security immediately. And it just said, Megyn just...
When this image first appeared online, she may have even welcomed it as a positive piece of her past coming to light. It showed her in a casual, natural setting, engaging in something culturally enriching during her formative university years. But what Megyn didn't anticipate was that people would examine beyond the surface of this seemingly straightforward college memory. She probably never considered that anyone would analyze the demographics of her dance classmates. After all, it was just a group of students taking salsa lessons together.
I'm delighted to cross to Rosarito, Mexico, where we're joined by our friend, Thomas Markle, the father of the Duchess of...
However, that's exactly where her established narrative began to face unexpected scrutiny. When people started examining this photo more carefully, they noticed something significant. Most of the people in that picture were born in the early 1970s, which means today they would be in their early 50s. That demographic information wouldn't necessarily be noteworthy, except for one important detail. Megyn was officially born in 1981. That creates an almost decade-long difference between her stated age and the ages of her dance classmates.
It's a huge disappointment, and it's sad every day.
I'm delighted to cross to Rosarito, Mexico.
And here's where it becomes particularly fascinating. She doesn't appear out of place in that group at all. She's not obviously younger than everyone else or positioned awkwardly among people from a different generation. Instead, she appears completely natural and integrated with this demographic. It's comparable to someone who should be significantly younger, somehow blending seamlessly into an older group, with no apparent age-related differences visible. But the timeline simply doesn't align.
We read these reports that he wasn't offered any help from the royal family or the palace. Can we believe, should we...
If the official information is accurate, Megyn should have appeared noticeably younger than most of her classmates. The photo raises questions about the entire foundation of her official timeline. When someone appears that comfortable and naturally positioned among a group of supposedly much older people, it suggests they might actually belong to that age demographic themselves. And that possibility opens up different questions about other aspects of Megyn's background. What makes this even more fascinating is that this wasn't just a random encounter. This was a regular class where she was clearly an integrated member of the group.
Growing question marks around the influence of major celebrities on culture,
suggesting sustained participation with people who, according to her official age, should have been in completely different life stages. But that photo wasn't even her biggest oversight, because what started as one notable image quickly revealed a much larger situation. The Northwestern Salsa Club picture wasn't an isolated incident. It was actually the first visible indication of a recurring pattern that had been present in her background for years. When people became interested in looking deeper into Megyn's history, they discovered that this age-related observation wasn't a one-time occurrence.
What if the fairy tale wasn't as flawless as it seemed? Meghan Markle, actress turned duchess.
Instead, they found that Megyn's name consistently appeared in connection with groups of people who didn't quite align with her supposed age bracket across multiple contexts and time periods. Alumni records from various events began to surface, showing Megyn participating in activities where the majority of other participants were from an older demographic than someone born in 1981 would typically be associated with. Event photographs and social gatherings from different periods all reflected the same observation. Megyn was consistently the demographic exception.
Stop everything because it was just past midnight when the first ripple of panic began to spread across newsroom floors in New York, London.
Always appearing naturally integrated with people from a different generational group. Each individual instance might have been understandable on its own. Perhaps she preferred connecting with more established individuals, or maybe she was involved in activities that naturally attracted an older demographic. But when examined collectively, they created a pattern that became increasingly noteworthy to attribute to coincidence. Repeatedly across different contexts and time periods, the same dynamic appeared. Most participants fit into expected demographic categories.
Officials said it was a clerical update for consistency, but insiders told that
while Megyn consistently appeared to align with an older age group than her official records indicated, the pattern extended beyond social situations to include professional networks and industry events. What made this pattern particularly fascinating was how natural her participation appeared. She wasn't someone who looked obviously out of place or seemed to be making an effort to fit in with an older demographic. Instead, she appeared to belong naturally within these groups, which raised questions about whether the official timeline accurately reflected her actual demographic alignment.
In a jaw-dropping moment in the world of royalty and every narrative is controlled, one detail has always...
Each new observation supported the same conclusion, that Megyn had been consistently participating in age-appropriate activities, just not age-appropriate for someone born in 1981. The collective effect was that her entire official timeline began to appear less like verified information and more like a narrative that didn't fully align with her documented life experiences. The most significant aspect was that each individual piece of information might have been overlooked if examined separately.
Welcome back today. Prince William and Kate reunited with Prince Harry and Meghan for the first time since they walked away from royal...
But when considered together, they suggested the age-related discrepancy wasn't an oversight, but rather a consistent element present throughout multiple periods of her documented history, long before she became a public figure. And then her own paperwork started creating unexpected complication, leading to what would become one of the most discussed pieces of evidence regarding her timeline. This wasn't just another photo from her past. This was official documentation.
Her big season 2 of With Love, Megyn, which is really such a fake season 2. I said this as soon as they ended.
That she had involvement with. When Archie was born, everything initially appeared to follow standard protocol. His birth certificate was filed properly with Megyn's full legal name listed clearly. Rachel Megyn appeared on the official document, just as it should have, according to established procedures. But then something unusual happened. Just weeks after Archie's birth was registered, the birth certificate was amended. Her personal names were removed from the document, where it had previously read Rachel Megyn. It now simply stated,
I think you can be supportive of Israel's right to defend itself. And you can support what Israel did with Hezbollah and what they did with
Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. This represented a significant change to her identification on her own child's official birth record. What made this change particularly fascinating was its unusual nature. Birth certificates aren't documents that are typically edited after filing. These are legal documents meant to be permanent records that generally remain unchanged unless there are significant administrative requirements. The timing also attracted attention. This happened within weeks of the original filing.
It's the first time little Meghan Markle was on TV, and she was a firecracker even at age 11.
Suggesting it was a deliberate modification rather than a response to any external requirement. For anyone already examining aspects of Meghan's background, This document change provided evidence of her involvement in managing official records. It demonstrated that she didn't just focus on her public image through carefully staged photos. She was apparently involved in modifications to legal documentation. The implications extended beyond this one document. If changes were made to her child's birth certificate, it raised questions about what other official records might have been subject to similar modifications.
Is intimate and none of our effing business, but she needs us to love her. So
Had there been changes to her own birth certificate? Had other legal documents been updated? What made this even more significant was that Megyn's explanation seemed to raise additional questions. When the alteration was discovered, her response suggested the change had been made due to palace protocols. But observers noted that other royal family members had maintained their personal names on their children's birth certificates. The most significant aspect was that it provided observers with concrete, verifiable evidence of changes to official records.
The Duchess of Sussex has denied wrongly using her former HRH title after becoming...
This was a documented alteration that could be verified through official channels, shifting discussions from speculation to questions about consistency in official documentation. But instead of stopping there, she made the situation more challenging by attempting to manage her visual history in ways that attracted additional scrutiny. What Megyn probably thought would be effective narrative management actually became a noticeable demonstration of how carefully she was trying to present her public image.
Meghan Markle sits down with the Time magazine. Is it the CEO? It's a woman who
Most people leave behind a natural, varied trail of visual memories, school photos, candid snapshots, social media posts that exist organically over time. But with Megyn, her visual history appeared unusually polished and systematically managed. Her photos didn't just exist in the digital landscape waiting to be discovered. Instead, they seemed carefully selected, timed, and released according to a coordinated schedule. The timing was particularly fascinating because it appeared to correlate with moments when Megyn was facing public discussion.
So here she is talking about the joy.
Is she on like your top 10 hate list?
Oh yeah, she's not top 5.
Whenever questions surfaced about her background or public attention increased, suddenly previously unseen childhood photos would appear in magazines, or carefully selected throwback images would surface across media platforms. This pattern became noticeable enough that observers started to anticipate it. People began to recognize that these nostalgic photo releases often coincided with periods of increased media attention. It appeared less like organic sharing of memories and more like...
So in Slate, they have a piece on .com. Santa Claus should not be a white man anymore. By the way, for all you kids watching at home...
strategic communication management presented as personal nostalgia. What made this approach particularly fascinating was what happened to older images that might have been expected to be readily available. While carefully selected new photos were appearing according to this pattern, other images that people might have expected to find were notably absent or difficult to locate, creating noticeable gaps in her visual timeline. The contrast between the managed appearances of new photos and the absence of others created an impression that Megyn's visual history was being actively coordinated.
Just called Independence Day, and really sort of owning what your independence means for you. And I had received an email the very next...
It suggested that there was deliberate control over not only what the public could see, but also what remained private or unavailable. Instead of building authenticity, this approach seemed to accomplish something different. When people noticed that Megyn's visual history appeared to be strategically coordinated, it raised questions about other aspects of her background presentation. If her photos were being managed for communication purposes, what other elements of her background were being similarly coordinated? The significant aspect was that this strategy appeared designed to control her narrative.
Even with me growing up, it was so much fast food, and yes, I get when you're on a budget, super affordable, but
may have actually highlighted the very questions she was trying to address. By making her visual history appear so systematically managed, she may have inadvertently drawn attention to the possibility that there were aspects of her past that required careful coordination in the first place. So she turned to the courts, not anticipating how this would complicate her situation in ways she never expected, transforming what should have been her strongest defensive approach into a mechanism that would amplify.
Megyn Kelly has built a career on asking tough questions, but for years, there was one question
the very questions she was trying to address. What Megyn probably viewed as taking control actually became a cycle that provided her critics with more material than they could have found on their own. The challenge with Megyn's legal approach was that it was based on assumptions about how public attention works in the digital age. She seemed to believe that court proceedings would allow her to manage the narrative more effectively than media appearances had accomplished. But what she didn't anticipate was that every court filing would become
reviews, magazine covers, and official biographies. Born on August 4th, 1981, in Los Angeles,
accessible information for people already examining her background. Each time Megyn engaged in legal action, she inadvertently opened up new avenues for examination. Legal documents require specific details, precise timelines, and verifiable information that can be cross-referenced and analyzed. Every case she pursued contained biographical information that became part of the public record and subject to scrutiny. The case involving her half-sister, Samantha, became
a chill of disbelief rippled through the media world when whispers of an explosive leak emerged from an unexpected source.
Particularly significant in ways that probably surprised her. What should have been a focused legal matter about reputation instead became a platform for raising questions about consistency in describing her family relationships and personal history. When people examined the details that emerged from this legal proceeding, they started asking questions that went beyond the specific issues being addressed in court. If there appeared to be inconsistencies in how Megyn presented information about her family relationships,
the fallout with her dad caused lasting damage. In one of the more shocking moments of the film,
observers wondered about the accuracy of other aspects of her background. The timing of these legal actions also created additional complications. Instead of resolving controversies, each new case seemed to coincide with renewed interest in previous questions about her timeline and background. Every time her name appeared in legal news, online discussions would immediately revisit the Northwestern photo, the birth certificate changes, and other elements that had raised questions.
What if Meghan Markle's biggest secret wasn't about love, but about power? What if the truth came not from a...
What made this legal approach particularly challenging was that it created a predictable pattern that her critics learned to anticipate. The moment Megyn engaged in new legal proceedings, online investigators would begin analyzing every detail of the court documents, looking for information that could be cross-referenced against her previous statements. The most significant aspect was that it transformed Megyn from someone addressing concerns about rumors into someone who appeared to be generating new material for examination.
Is Meghan Markle attractive? Megyn has a pretty large jaw.
Every legal proceeding provided fresh documentation that could be analyzed and compared against existing information about her background. The outcome was that this approach was designed to address her detractors and manage the narrative, but it actually accomplished something different. Each court case provided new opportunities for critics to examine her statements and compare her legal assertions against other available information, creating more questions rather than providing resolution. That's when the discussion became her biggest challenge.
We don't like you, Meghan Markle, and no amount of posting videos that you think are going to humanize you will make us like,
creating an expanding wave of speculation that overwhelmed any attempt Megyn made to manage her narrative. What had started as isolated questions about a college photo had evolved into a comprehensive examination of her entire background, and she found herself facing something that no amount of legal action could address: The challenge with information spread in the digital age is that it doesn't follow traditional patterns. In the past, questionable information might have circulated through limited channels and eventually subsided.
Meghan Markle is at it again. She can't help herself. So, according to...
But modern social media had created an entirely different environment where speculation could grow, evolve, and become self-sustaining. What made Meghan's situation particularly challenging was that every response she had made had inadvertently provided more material for examination. The photo management had raised questions about her approach to controlling information. The document changes had demonstrated her involvement in altering official records. The legal proceedings had created new sources of information that could be analyzed. Each response created more questions.
In 2017, longtime Fox News anchor Megyn Kelly was hired by NBC with her new daytime talk show,
rather than providing resolution. This created a cycle that became challenging to address. Every time she tried to respond to one aspect of the speculation, her actions would generate new questions and new avenues for examination. Every attempt to manage the narrative would be analyzed for what it revealed about her communication strategy. The speed at which information could be analyzed and shared meant that Megyn was consistently responding to questions that had already evolved beyond her ability to address them effectively. By the time she could respond to one set of concerns...
She doesn't have a dad? What a farce. She does have a dad. He raised her and loved her and...
The discussion had already moved to include new elements. Social media platforms had created an environment where anyone with internet access could participate in examining Meghan's background. This wasn't limited to professional journalists. Ordinary people could contribute to ongoing analysis of her timeline, compare information from different sources, and share their observations with potentially millions of others. The collaborative nature of online examination meant that analysis was happening simultaneously.
Meghan and Harry, these absolute cretins, decide to inject themselves into the
across multiple platforms, involving many people contributing different pieces of information. This created a comprehensive level of scrutiny that would have been challenging for any individual organization to achieve. The persistent nature of online discussion also meant that questions about Meghan's background continued rather than being resolved. Unlike traditional media cycles where stories would eventually be replaced by newer topics, the internet provided a platform where these discussions could continue over extended periods. The most significant aspect was that this digital discussion...
The only reason we know who you are is because you married into the royal family. No one
had developed its own momentum that operated independently of Meghan's actions or responses. The speculation had become self-sustaining, with each new piece of information being incorporated into existing analysis, rather than resolving underlying questions, creating a situation where her public narrative was influenced by factors beyond her direct control. And that's when Kelly made her strategic move with precise timing, delivering exactly the right question at exactly the right moment.
And she turned Jolene into her version of a badass, because that's what modern day...
to address everything Meghan had been trying to manage. What made Kelly's approach so effective was the timing and directness that cut through all of Meghan's careful narrative management. Kelly had been observing the entire situation. The Northwestern photo discussion, the age-related observations, the document changes, the legal proceedings, and the growing online examination. She had watched as each of Meghan's responses had actually created additional questions. And she recognized the optimal moment to ask the one question.
So it is neither just nor practical for their voices, for our voices,
that would bring all of these concerns together. The effectiveness of Kelly's strategy was that she didn't get lost in details. Instead, she went straight to the central issue, whether Meghan's official age information was accurate. By focusing on this core point, She initiated a conversation that Megyn had been apparently trying to avoid for an extended period. What made Kelly's question so impactful was its straightforward nature. She wasn't making complex accusations or presenting elaborate theories.
One thing we learned early with Megyn, she has a remarkable influence. Remarkable. So when we...
She was simply asking whether Meghan Markle was really 44 years old or whether she might be older. It was a direct question that called for a direct answer, but one that Megyn was apparently unable to address in a way that satisfied public curiosity. The timing was particularly significant. Kelly waited until all the elements were in place. The photo observations had been identified, the patterns recognized, and the online examination had reached substantial momentum.
You bake? Is that what it is? Because I don't believe that. You wear a ball gown? Okay, I guess that's true, but it's pretty much with somebody else.
By entering at this moment, she brought together all these separate concerns into a single, focused inquiry. Kelly's approach demonstrated sophisticated understanding of modern media dynamics. Rather than getting involved in detailed analysis, she presented the issue in terms anyone could understand. The question of someone's age is something every person can relate to, making it accessible to a much broader audience. The most significant aspect was that Kelly reframed the entire discussion in a way that put Megyn in a challenging position.
When she married Harry, the press was wonderful for her. The British people loved Harry.
Instead of being able to address individual concerns separately, Megyn was suddenly faced with a direct public inquiry that called for a clear and immediate response. Kelly's question also brought mainstream attention to all the previous speculation around Megyn's background. By giving prominent media coverage to the age question, Kelly transformed what had been primarily an online examination into a mainstream media topic, reaching a much larger audience.
You could become world famous overnight. You could live in a castle. You could have access to the crown jewels. You would be...
The strategic approach was that Kelly didn't need to present complex evidence or detailed theories. She simply had to ask the right question and let the existing circumstances and Megyn's response provide the context. By positioning herself as someone seeking clarification rather than making accusations, Kelly maintained credibility while focusing attention on the need for Megyn to provide clear answers. This approach demonstrated how a well-timed, direct question can be more effective than complex analysis.
From your show, Suits, we were all focused on the hot guy who was the lead in all of the advertising, but we never clicked in to watch the show.
In bringing attention to important issues and creating focus for transparent responses. Now, Megyn faces a challenging scenario. The prospect that Kelly might be correct and that all the speculation could be pointing toward information that would significantly impact everything she had built. This isn't about addressing rumors anymore. This is about confronting the possibility that her public narrative might require substantial revision. If Kelly's observations are accurate and if the alternative birth years are actually correct,
17 years old Meghan Markle outside Buckingham Palace. This photo was taken in June 1996.
Then we're looking at a situation that would represent a significant discrepancy in her official information. Her biography wouldn't just contain minor inaccuracies. It would represent a substantial difference in her documented personal history. If Megyn was actually born in 1975 or 1977, then she wouldn't be the 44-year-old modern duchess the world knows. She would be in her late 40s, which would substantially change the context of her story and public presentation.
Meghan Markle marked her 44th birthday with heartfelt thanks on Instagram, sharing a joyful candle-blowing moment.
Her Hollywood background would be viewed differently. Instead of being a younger actress working her way up through the industry, she would have been someone navigating an entertainment business that historically becomes more challenging for women as they age. Instead of someone with expanding opportunities, she would have been facing the industry's well-documented age-related barriers. The royal narrative would also appear different. what seemed to be a story about a younger modern woman bringing contemporary perspectives to a traditional institution would instead be viewed as a carefully managed presentation designed to emphasize youth and relatability that might not have accurately reflected her actual demographic. But here's where it becomes particularly significant. If this scenario is accurate, then the information discrepancy would extend beyond Hollywood to include official royal documentation. These are institutions with extensive experience in verifying biographical information.
Had evolved, and let's face it, Charlie was like an unofficial spokesperson for the youth of America.
If inaccurate information was present in official records, it would represent a documentation issue that goes beyond typical public image management. Every public statement where she referenced her age, every official celebration, every timeline reference would need to be reconsidered in light of this information. This wouldn't represent simple mistakes. It would indicate systematic inconsistency in biographical information maintained over an extended period. The most challenging aspect for Megyn is that if any of this information proves accurate,
I'm thrilled that my husband is able to join me here this time.
it would be difficult to address through traditional communication strategies. This wouldn't be a controversy that could be managed through typical public relations approaches. It would represent a fundamental question about accuracy in official biographical information that would significantly impact public perception. If Kelly's observations are correct, then the carefully constructed public image that Megyn has developed could be significantly affected by revelations about basic biographical information.
This tweet is how I found out that Meghan Markle is 41 years old. 41. Whole time I thought that she was a...
The inspiring narrative could become a notable example about the importance of accuracy and transparency in public documentation, particularly in the digital age where information can be extensively analyzed and cross-referenced. Looking at where Megyn stands now, the situation presents significant challenges. When you examine all the elements together, the Salsa Club photo observations, the age-related discussions, the birth certificate changes, the photo management, and the legal proceedings.
Comments to make about any other duchesses at the moment? Who could that be? Who could that be? I have no...
It creates a comprehensive picture that appears coordinated rather than coincidental. One incident might have been overlooked. Two could be attributed to chance. But when you consider all these elements collectively, it becomes increasingly complex to address through standard communication approaches. The pattern appears consistent, and the responses have become multifaceted. Megyn built her public presence on carefully planned presentation and a well-developed biography. Every aspect was designed to project authenticity and contemporary appeal.
When you start putting the pieces together, the puzzle that's supposed to tell Megyn's life story begins to look like it's hiding something.
But when examined in detail, the foundation appears less stable and more susceptible to analysis than initially apparent. The age question has become representative of broader communication challenges. The extent of coordination involved in managing a public narrative that faces ongoing examination. Each response has generated additional questions, and efforts to address concerns have sometimes maintained focus on the very issues being addressed.
Not a surprise here because, yeah, she lies a lot about her stuff. We've caught her in so many lies, her own system.
Kelly's approach transformed separate observations into a focused inquiry requesting clear responses. By asking the direct question about Megyn's age, Kelly initiated a discussion that addresses central concerns directly. The Duchess aimed to create a positive narrative that would establish her favorable place in public memory. What has developed instead appears to be a carefully coordinated presentation designed to create specific perceptions rather than provide direct information.
Code word? For the B word.
No. You were just difficult, Megyn. Very difficult.
If questions about her age information prove to have merit, it raises broader questions about accuracy in other aspects of her background presentation. If something as basic as birth year information faces scrutiny, it creates interest in whether other elements might have been similarly coordinated. Now she faces a situation where each response generates additional questions. Every explanation requires further detail, and attempts to move beyond these topics sometimes maintain their presence in public discussion.
How she swore she had absolutely no contact with the writers of that fawning book, Finding Freedom, about
the communication approaches she utilized to build her image have become subjects of analysis themselves. The fundamental question is whether she can address these concerns comprehensively through transparent communication, or whether this situation will continue to influence public understanding. The positive narrative she aimed to establish has become an example of contemporary communication complexities, illustrating how modern information analysis can identify gaps between public presentations and available documentation. So here we are.
Please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for updates. Scobie, a renowned royal correspondent,
Meghan Markle, who once appeared to have effective control over her public narrative, now finds herself facing questions that continue to generate discussion. Kelly's direct question about her age has highlighted something broader, a pattern of observations that persists despite efforts to address it through various communication strategies. The photo that initiated this discussion, the document changes, the legal proceedings that created additional attention, each element of this situation tells a similar story.
Loyalty, and every narrative is controlled. One detail has always remained suspiciously untouched. Megyn,
someone who built her public presence on careful narrative management, only to find that the management itself has become a subject of analysis and examination. Whether Kelly's observations prove accurate or not, one thing is evident. Inconsistencies have been identified, and once people notice them, they tend to remain topics of discussion. The inspiring narrative Megyn aimed to establish has evolved into something quite different from her original intentions.
4th, 1981, in Los Angeles, into a biracial family.
and if the series of evidence that has been found...
What are your thoughts on this situation? Do you think these are simply coincidental observations, or do they represent something more significant about public figure transparency? Share your perspective in the comments below. I value hearing different viewpoints on complex topics like this. If this analysis provided useful insights into how modern media examination works, consider liking and subscribing for more discussions that examine stories from multiple angles. Enable notifications to stay updated on developing stories, because situations like this often continue to evolve, and there may be more information that emerges over time.